there, and thanks for joining us on another very interesting edition of Issues of the Moment, a current affairs program reaching you live from NTA Channel 12 Uyo, your dependable station. I'm your anchor for tonight. My name is Umo Basidit. And with me in the studio, we have some very important guests in the studio tonight, and that also members of the Association of Nigeria Public Administrators, ANPA. And we'll be talking about one very important event that is coming up soon in the city of Uyo, Akwa Ibom State. On my left, I have Professor Kamal Bello, who is the BOT chairman. Good evening, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Nice to have you. And on my right, I have Professor Celestine Bassi, who is the lead paper presenter for that event.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Prof.
Thank you.
Okay, so without taking much of your time, we'll just set the ball rolling now. Talking about the 4th annual international conference of ANPA. Prof, what is this conference all about?
The conference is an annual international event to bring together public administrators from the academia, from the professional, from every field where they are, to come together and brainstorm on the state of public administration in Nigeria and the way forward. It's an annual event and it's an international one. People are joining all over the world. Okay. If they cannot come physically, they join through Zoom to participate.
Okay, so when are we expecting this event to
The program is commencing tomorrow by the grace of God, 22nd of July 2024, and it's ending 24th of July 2024. Okay. It's a 2-day event.
Okay, and Professor Bassi, talking about public administrators, the role of public administrators. Let us first of all look at what the role is in the country.
Well, there are foundations for public sector governance anyway. And when you talk about government, you can't talk about government without, of course, anyway, understanding that what we call governance is driven by public policy. And that policy is, of course, part and parcel of the institutional role of what we call the ministries, anyway, in the country. So to that extent, therefore, public administration is very critical for governance in any country in this particular case. You have, of course, to provide solutions, to challenges, of course, anyway, that the country faces. And this goes through the process, of course, anyway, of what we call Executive Council bill that goes, of course, to the National Assembly, passes through first, second, and third reading, and if it is approved, it will be signed, of course, into law. So because of that, you'll have what is called public policy on education, health, and all the sectors in society. So the foundation for governance system, of course, is very much, of course, critically linked, of course, to public administration anyway in any country.
Okay, so Professor Bello, looking at the forthcoming conference, what is the theme of this 4th conference?
The theme is to see how public administration can be used to solve problems of development, because this is a developing country, or sometimes they call it underdeveloped. Yeah. And then we believe that brainstorming on how way forward about the development of the nation. Everybody realized that there's crisis in the country, security-wise, economic-wise, political-wise, and so on and so forth. So public administrators in Nigeria want to come together in Uyo, the state university, to sit down and see how public administration can be used to solve most of our problems in the country.
Okay, and going to Professor Bassi now, he has listed some of those challenges, some of those crises that we're already facing in this country. Do you think there's a way forward? Because like Nigerians are already losing hope in what is happening in this country. What do you think is the way forward?
Well, that's the critical issue, in a stagflationary economy like Nigeria, where you have high level of inflation and high level, of course, of unemployment anyway, and poverty. Nigeria has been declared the poverty capital of the world. And to that extent, anyway, we have even been the focus, of course, anyway, of global sector analysis. Anyway, Nigeria has been declared, of course, a failed state since 2005, and there was a projection that by 2015 will become a collapsed state like Somalia and the rest. Anyway, but it looks like anyway that the the ball is still rolling, of course, in this particular critical area. And if, of course, those in government, that is both, of course, at the executive, administrative, and judicial level, do not, of course, anyway, take proper policy directions anyway and implement those particular policies, we may even end up, of course, anyway, as a collapse state anyway, where we are going, especially given the high level of insecurity, the type of challenges we are facing, of course, anyway, with what is called, in this particular case, Boko Haram and ISIS and the rest, anyway. That's the challenges, anyway, that comes from anarchist movement, anyway, like Boko Haram, ISIS, and the rest, anyway. So we have to deal with the problem, of course, of insecurity, the high level of insecurity, if the country is going to sustain, of course, anyway, is in this particular case is going to sustain, of course, anyway, is identity, as a nation, and to that extent, of course, anyway, ensure that the prediction about collapse, of course, of the Nigerian state anyway is quite reversed. But for now, anyway, we can see that instead of since that 2015, instead of reversal in terms of governance policies, anyway, we are still, of course, moving in that particular direction. And this is a very critical issue. That is why the theme of this conference has to do with socio-economic crisis anyway. Yeah. In this particular case, we have to find a way to deal with the fundamental problem relating, of course, anyway, to insecurity. It affects, of course, the state in terms of the level, of course, anyway, of stagflationary economy, the collapse, of course, of infrastructure like iron and steel, petrochemical industry, machine tooling industry, fabrication and design. All these infrastructures were in place anyway for what was supposed to be, of course, a developed Nigerian economy, by at least 2020. That's Vision 2010 and Vision 2020. Instead of that, anyway, instead of moving forward, we are really, of course, anyway, rolling, in a critical sector. And if, of course, we do not have a type of governance leadership in terms of transformative governance, anyway, it is unfortunate that we cannot, of course, foresee what will happen in the next 5 or 10 years in this particular country if this degree of insecurity actually continues. So that is why, therefore, in the public sector discourse, we have what is called securitization of development, that a country cannot develop without security. We also have securitization of peace. A country cannot have peace without security. And these are critical issue areas that have to be dealt with in public discourse anyway. And it's part of the theme, of course, anyway, of this particular conference anyway.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prof. Professor Bello, Prof has talked so much about security. Now beyond security, we have issues like high level of unemployment, we have some high inflation rates in the country. In fact, total failed state, that's what Nigeria has been declared to be. And don't you think that public administrators have contributed immensely to seeing Nigeria where it is right now? Because everybody seems to be blaming the political class. But beyond the political class, don't you think the public administrators have also been working hand in hand with this political class?
Well, I may not agree in totality.
Okay.
The public administrators has been the cause of the economic unemployment crisis in the country. Why? If you go to, those are the things that this association is trying to bring about. How can you professionalize public administration and public administrative job? Every Tom, Dick and Harry today is a public administrator. In the NTA, we have administrators. Even in the space, in the sciences, in the laboratories, they are administrators. Administrators are the backbone of every successful outings.
Of course.
But in Nigeria, we have seen that anybody, there was a time, somebody with chemistry is becoming head of service. So that's what we are trying to do with the Association of Nigerian Public Administrators. How do we ensure that professionals are the ones working in this ministry you are talking about, the MDAs, ministry, departments, and agencies? We realize that people that are working there are not well-trained administrators. We are not agitating. they should be well trained, have relevant certificate. If it's a HND, if it is BSc, if it is MSc, if it is PhD in public administration, so that I can be able to deliver. We are not seeing delivery now. We are thinking that they are aiding and abetting the political elites, the political class, the administrators. It's because of the training. Most of them are not properly trained, so we need them to be trained and retrained to know their job so that they can perform effectively. They are not performing effectively. If you take statistics in most of our MDAs, go and check those who are working. What is the relevant certificate they have to the job they are doing as administrators? That's why we got it wrong. And that's what the Association of Nigeria Public Administrators is trying to agitate. Let's professionalize public administration in Nigeria. If you don't have the prerequisite certificate, go for training. Then you can come back and continue your job. But you can't bring any certificate. There was a time I saw a university advertising. A university is a public entity. It's advertising that if you want to become an administrator, you should bring a management. They must have certificates in business management. Business management and public management, they are two different things. Though public administration has two parents. The blood parent, that is, and then the foster parent. It was public administration was born or gave birth to in the political science class, and then it grew up in management. But it has a unique way of life. It has some unique way of life. So that's what we are trying to agitate. That performing effectively, efficiently as a public administrator, you must be trained. Train and be retrained. Every time, some people will go now and say they are public administrator and they will go to Institute of Management to be a professional member. Some will go to other professions to be a member. And that's what we are trying to correct. That want to be a public administrator, you must belong to a public administrator profession and be trained in that field. That will help. They are not helping the situation because of the lack of training, lack of prerequisites, training and experience in administration.
Okay, and I beg to remain with you because you talked about professionalism. Is there any way your association is planning to clamp down on people that are seen like quacks that are practicing in public administration field when they are not well trained for that?
We are in talk directly with the head of service of the Federation.
Okay.
We've written letters to her to let her be aware. Because recently, promotion to certain level, even in academia, you must have professional certificate. We are not asking them that anybody that will bring professional certificate, it must be from professional association. Yeah. Not just anything. So we are in talk with the head of service of this, so that we start from there. If the head of service can accept, because most of these things we are talking about public administration, they are mainly in the ministries, departments and agencies who are helping the political class to run the government.
Of course.
So we are starting from there to make them realize that there's a mistake we are making in Nigeria. We are not professionalizing public administration, and it's very important. If there's no good delivery, it's because of the administrators. Because politicians will go and come and go. But the administrators are there for 35 years. They are the one determining. They are the one making the policy. They are the one advising the political heads.
Of course.
So we are in talk with the head of service.
Okay. At
the federal level. If we are able to do that, we will now go around the states also. The state head of service to tell them, to make them realize the mistakes we are making. It's a mistake. Are you getting it? We may not know. Some may not know that with any certificate you can be an administrator. And then we see them, they are there. But we are agitating, or we are just waking them up to go and do something relevant to the profession they are working.
Okay, thank you so very much, Professor Bello. And then back to Professor Bassi. Now we talked about security, the insecurity in the Nigerian state. How about the economic crisis, the socio-economic crisis? Beyond security now, every other thing is not working. So what is your take on this?
Well, yes, the economic crisis is there, but at the same time also there are some causal factors that drives, of course, the economic crisis anyway. Most, of course, anyway, of the political economy analysts will talk, of course, anyway, about what is called the social pathology So the social pathology in terms of leadership incompetence, in terms of organizational ineptitude, in terms of corruption, and of course, what's called work ethics, anyway.
Yeah.
But there are also factors that are driving and sustaining this, and that's the dominant political culture in our governance. One of the American professors, who was here at the garden, once wrote a book on democracy and prebendalism in Nigeria. For Nigerians, Nigeria, even up till now, politics, of course, the political culture in this particular case is still prebendal. Politics is a clearinghouse for job, contract, and official plunder, not service, in this particular case. So as long as this type of prebendal political culture remains dominant in Nigeria, it will be reflected in the social pathologies, of course, of the system. And to that extent, one of the, at least, vectors, of course, of dealing with this particular issue, of course, is to have institutional reinforcement in terms of oversight function in the public service, That's what, of course, what we call the National Assembly is there for, But instead of carrying out the oversight functions, it looks as if they themselves tend to complicate it.
Yeah.
So any of the member of the National Assembly that opens his mouth to criticize, the next thing you hear, it has been suspended.
It's been thrown out.
The senator, of course, from Sani, just opening his mouth to tell us that they've been receiving about 14 million monthly, just for administrative purposes. He was kicked out, in this particular case. So we have to reinforce, of course, what we call our governance institution, and ensure that the role, of course, of those institutions like what's called the assembly, even at state level, the oversight function is carried out, because they are supposed to ensure that what we call governance, system and institutions are there to implement, of course, the policy of the country, But as long as the situation we find ourselves, what is called the dominance of prebendal culture, continues, Nigeria will descend, of course, into what generally, that we have seen as part of the driving force, of why we are the way we are, like a poverty capital of the world, We've been declared by the World Bank, So clearly there are interface, in this case. Yes, you can have, of course, a functioning, developed economy without, of course, security, because a lot of money is diverted. Look at the amount of billions are being diverted, of course, into security operations. That would have even fixed our turnaround maintenance for, let's say, our petrochemical industry, iron and steel industry, and this would have employed millions and millions of Nigerians. With that employment, of course, the poverty level, of course, will be reduced for the family. But as long as this situation continues, every president will come and say, well, I'll reactivate these industries, iron and steel and the rest, but they don't. Why? Because much of the money goes, of course, into the pursuit and maintenance of security, so fighting, of course, what we call Boko Haram or ISIS, that's asymmetrical warfare, even maintenance against bandits and the rest, So much of what we call the budget of a country now is now channeled, of course, into security, but that will not solve the problem of Nigeria in this particular case. So it only complicates situation. So the level, of course, of unemployment we have in this country is frightening. And as long as you have that particular level, you are bound to have the consequences of unemployment And to that extent, so these multiple issues will have to be dealt with. And to that extent, what we call, of course, the governance institutions of the country must also stand up, of course, to the task for which, of course, as Robert said, they were employed so in this case.
Thank you so very much. And in case you are just joining us, the program is Issues of the Moment. And I have some erudite gentlemen here in the house this evening, and the members of Association of Nigeria Public Administrators, ANPA. And we are here talking about the 4th Annual International Conference that is coming on shortly from tomorrow in Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State. So in case you're just joining us, stay tuned. We've been talking about public administrators and their role in in fact, trying to salvage the socioeconomic crisis in the country. And so just take note to your screen. Professor Kamal Bello is the BOT chairman of ANPA. Okay, so Professor Bello, now straight to the conference proper. We've been talking about the role of public administrators in tackling the challenges in the country. So now the conference, from what day and to what day are we expecting this conference to run?
I said the conference is coming up from tomorrow, and the conference is hosted by the Department of Public Administration of the Akwa Ibom State University.
Okay.
And tomorrow is 22nd of July 2024, and it is going to end on the 24th of July 2024 as well. And so departure is 25th of July. It's a 2-day conference.
Okay. And who are the people participating in the conference?
Yes, as I've said, it's an international conference.
Okay.
Members are participating all over the world, from different universities, polytechnics, colleges of education, ministries, departments, and agencies. People are coming from Abuja. As you see me sitting with you, I came yesterday from Abuja.
Wow, welcome to Akwa Ibom.
Thank you very much for the purpose of this conference, and some are still coming. Some people are coming from other states, Imo, Rivers, Lagos, Ogun, all over the country they are coming, and some have called that they have arrived in their hotel rooms. So it's an international conference, and the essence of it is to, as I've said, to brainstorm, to deliberate that how can public administration be used to solve the social economic problem that we are facing in Nigeria. His Excellency, the governor of this state, is coming by the grace of God. The Pastor
Umo
Eno, because we are giving him what we call a grand fellow of the association. He has accepted that he will be there by the grace of God, and some other dignitaries within the states and outside the state. There is a commissioner for women affairs from the closest state, Cross River. So she promised that she will grace the occasion as well.
Okay.
By the grace of God. So even the academia, Prof, as he's sitting with us from Calabar, you identify him when he came in.
Yeah, former commissioner.
And this is a Prof also from Abuja.
Wow.
He's from Abuja. So it's a big thing in Nigerian term.
Yeah.
In terms of the who is who that will grace the occasion, who have promised to grace the occasion. And most of them are arriving since yesterday.
Okay.
Because they want to take today to relax, so that they will face the business tomorrow squarely.
Okay, so tell us about the registration. How can one participate in this conference? What's the registration process like?
The registration process, thank God the local organizing committee, this is the HOD, Imo is the HOD of the Public Admin Department, and this is the secretary to the committee, local organizing committee. And the flyer is there, the number of the contact, the email to contact, and the procedure for registration. And if you want to be a member, either associate member, full member, or even fellow, if you contact him, we give better direction, because it's closer to the grassroots than me that I'm from Abuja.
Okay. And the theme of the conference again is
it's a public administration antidote to socioeconomic crisis
in Nigeria. And I know that we have the lead paper presenter in the house here.
Yes.
Prof, you are going to do justice to this theme. So tell us, what are we expecting from tomorrow?
Okay, well, the program, of course, anyway, the details are there, of themes anyway, that are going to be discussed in relation, of course, anyway, to the socioeconomic crisis anyway in Nigeria. So we are going to examine, of course, some of the issues we've already raised anyway in this particular case, and especially, of course, the link between the prevalent insecurity in the country and, of course, the effect on the basic institutional, that's the governance direction, policy implementation. We also know that, of course, anyway, the inflation in the country, about food crisis and the rest, are also related, of course, anyway, to the problem of security. Many farmers have been killed in the northeast. What is happening in Benue, of course, anyway, we all know about it anyway in this particular case. But the fundamental of it is that, if a country needs, of course, to have a stable policy implementation directions in its economy, also that particular country also had to deal with security issues within its environment.
Thank you so very much, Prof. Thank you so very much. And the program has been issues of the moment, and we've been speaking with some members of the Association of Nigeria Public Administrators, ANPA, ahead of their 4th annual international conference. The theme for the conference is Public Administration and Antidote to Socioeconomic Crisis in Nigeria, and they're expecting you there from tomorrow. So, Professor Bello, good to have you once again in Akwa Ibom State. What's your parting word to the viewer out there?
Just to assure them that Nigeria will be good one day. We should not lose hope. As we're asking for rights from government, which you should be thinking, what is the duty we are going to perform to make this country better? One person cannot do it. All of us have to join hand together. All of us to join. They say united we stand, divided we fall. No matter the pain that we have now, we should not destroy the country. We have no other place to go other than this place. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming, Professor Bello. Thank you, Professor Bassey, for being here. And you've heard it all. Nigeria is our country, your motherland, so it's our collective responsibility to join hands with the public administrators to ensure that Nigeria works again. Thanks for being there. I remain Umo Bassey. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much.
From politics, climate change, economy, health, security, religion to social justice, there is so much to rearrange. Issues of the Moment is here to help address some life-challenging puzzles through in-depth analysis and reviews. Issues of the Moment on NTA Channel